Good afternoon. Go through it.
Second here to connect all the technology.
Thank you.
Oh, you don't have a hard copy?
I will write it.
Figure it out.
Forward to.
Send it to me.
Do you have the internet?
I do.
Okay.
All right, 19 CR 451, People versus Devon Erickson. Council, go ahead and enter your appearances.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. George Brockler appearing as a special deputy district attorney for purposes of this sentencing. Seated with me at the table, our Chief Deputy District Attorney Chris Gallo, and in the empty seat to my left, Senior Chief Deputy Chris Wilcox. Also present before the bar, our District Attorney John Kellner and Detective Brian Pereira from the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, and Chris Taylor.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Julia Stansel and David Kaplan on behalf of Mr. Erickson. He is present to my right. Mr. Kaplan has gone missing just in the last few moments. He was here, so I'm not sure if he stepped outside to talk to Mr. Wilcox or not. I'm happy to go outside and see if I can find him.
Okay. It looks like Mr. Kaplan's here. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Your Honor. I was out in the hallway.
It's fine. All right, we are set for sentencing today. I did receive on Monday a pre-sentence investigation report, which was just under 600 pages. I've received a dump drive that had hundreds of victim impact statements. Some of those were contained already. Most of them were contained in the PSI already. I also received today about 10 more this morning, about 11 o'clock. Starting first with the people, have you received the PSI and have you had a chance to review it?
We have, Your Honor. There are a couple corrections, Mr. Gallo's expert.
We can take those up whenever the court wants, Judge.
Okay. Defense received the victim impact statements and the PSI.
I believe so, Your Honor. You mentioned, we received the PSI for certain and the 500, close to 600 pages attached to that. We also, as you indicated, we're receiving kind of a rolling amount of additional through discovery. Much of that is repetitive to what we've already received. The court mentions a jump drive. I have not seen a jump drive. To the extent it's duplicative, then it's the same things that we've already had. That there's things contained in there different, I can't speak to that.
The zip drive, jump drive, thumb drive, whatever you'd like to call it, I believe it was right around 1,500 pages on that drive. I can't be certain if every single one of them was in the PSI, but there were duplicative pages in there. Defense received a copy of all that information.
Judge, they have, I think the only additions to that are what the court referenced about some of the filings this morning with statements that we received later this week. So they do have a copy of all of the victim impact statements contained on that drive.
May I just inquire, are those in addition to what was provided attached to the pre-sentence investigation report?
Those are not all in addition to. I think there was frankly some miscommunication on my end with regard to that drive, and instead of submitting just the ones that were not as part of the PSI, we submitted everything, but those have all been provided in discovery.
But we have reviewed all of the discovery. When you mentioned the jump drive, I don't know that we received it in that manner, but we have received the pre-sentence investigation report, the attachments there too, and we have reviewed anything that's come to discovery.
Okay, people ready for sentencing?
Yes, Judge.
Defense?
Yes, Your Honor. One other preliminary matter. The reason we were in the hall is that there was a video that I believe the prosecution just received that they are, as I understand it, contemplating showing the court. We would object to that. Just had an opportunity to review it. It is, I'll let them characterize it, so I'm not offending it. I'm going to let the government characterize it because I do not want to be seen as offending anybody about it. There are portions of it that also have footage of the event, the actual events. They at the school, responders, those kind of things. And I think that we received it late, and some of what's on it, I believe, is inappropriate and repetitive.
Okay. Other than that, defense is ready for sentencing?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Before we then begin, let me talk about some of the ground rules for today and how this will go. I just want to remind everybody about recording devices. There shouldn't be anybody recording, and if you have a phone, everybody needs to turn it off or turn it to silent. There is a WebEx proceeding that's happening. Folks on the WebEx should not be able to give input, but they're watching. To the extent that there is an interruption, the rules for the WebEx are the same as if they're in the courtroom, with the exception of the expanded media, which I've granted for the WebEx courtroom, not inside this courtroom. Everybody does need to keep their masks on, except if you are speaking at the podium. I'll also permit counsel to take their masks off during your arguments or statements. If somebody who is not a named attorney on the case is giving a statement to the court, a couple things. I'd like you to state your name, spell your last name, or spell your entire name for the record. Please direct all of your comments to me. The case and these proceedings, these events are without question emotional. Emotions are permitted, but we are still in a courtroom, and we will all remain dignified and respectful. If you're reading something to me, oftentimes when people are reading, they speed up, they go faster. Their voices go lower, so please be mindful that we are taking down word for word everything that's being said. So if you're reading, just take a moment, take a breath, and slow down a little bit so that everybody can get what you're saying. My understanding was that I think Mr. Gallo, you were going to talk to me about some additions or changes you had to the PSI.
Yes, Judge, if the court wants to do that now.
Yes.
Judge, as to page 1, dealing with the possible penalties, the PSI lists count 1 and count 2 as life imprisonment with the possibility of parole. That does not apply in this case. Under 18.1.3401, as this court knows, there are various situations where it does, and none of those do apply here. As to count 3, count 3 dealt with conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree. There was not a crime of violence enhancement question asked of the jury on that. So that range is not 16 to 48 years, but is rather 8 to 24 years. Counts 4 through 9 and 10 through 34. All those ranges are correct. The crime of violence sentencing provisions are correct, Judge. We do believe, though, that counts 4 through 9 must run or ought to run concurrently with the same named victim counts as appear in counts 10 through 34. So 4 through 9, those victims named should run concurrently with the same named victim counts that appear in counts 10 through 34. If that makes sense, Judge?
It does.
Aside from that, Judge, I think the functional application of it is counts 10 through 34. The PSI correctly notes must run consecutively with all other counts and with each other. We believe all other counts are discretionary, consec, or concurrent. Aside from that, Judge, we do not have any other corrections, additions to the court. Does the court wish to know what we believe the actual range is, or shall we save that for our comments?
Say that for later.
Yes, ma'am.
Any additions or corrections to the PSI?
Your Honor, I did review the PSI with Mr. Erickson, and as Mr. Erickson sits here today, he is 20 years old. He is not 21. His birthday is Tuesday, September 21st. And so the PSI is wrong when it states that he's 21 years old.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you. People's presentation and argument.
Your Honor, the way I'd like to proceed is we have, at the time, 15 individuals who would like to address the court. I'd like to proceed with them in the order that we have. But, I've been through this a number of times. You have too. You know that from time to time there are those who wish to speak who may ultimately change their mind. That this could be to their law. And I'll follow up with my own comments. The first victim that would like to address the court is Nikki Giasoli.
Hi, my name is Nikki Giasoli, Nykigiasolli. I'll be reading a statement from my daughter, Nui, N-U-I, Silberstein, S-I-L-B as in boy, E-R-S-T-E-I-N, first, and then my statement. Nui writes, I've spent the last 2.5 years trying to piece together some easier way to describe my feelings and emotions when coming to this event. I finally determined that there will never be an easier way to say the words, I was in a school shooting. Having to spend the last 2.5 years explaining to staff members at my job why they couldn't pop the airbags near me because it caused flashbacks and anxiety attacks. having to notify staff members at my college why I needed to visit classrooms before class started so I could find all the exits. So if another situation such as this were to happen, I would know how to get myself to safety. Then worst of all, having to explain to them that while I am a good employee and I'm not a flake, I might get called away at a moment's notice to testify at proceedings. I know they don't care what any of us truly think or say. They've accepted their fates. A friend told me something a while ago. He said that for every life they ruined in and out of that classroom, you should strive to make 1,000 lives better. For every person they hurt, you should try to heal thousands more. I know I can't stop all school shooters, but I can try my hardest to prevent kids from feeling that this is a viable option. Pardon me. Whenever I think of Kendrick, I will think of the sacrifice and the bravery of the man that saved me. That if I could switch places with, I know me and countless others would do. Kendrick will always be a name that makes me cry. Not tears of sadness, but tears of gratitude. I know I will never be able to repay Kendrick and his parents for what they've lost. But I will spend the rest of my life trying to make sure that this family's sacrifice is not forgotten. Thank you. That was from Nui. Your Honor, throughout the past 2.5 years, I have had and been privy to countless conversations about how the events of May 7th, 2019 have affected people. As this day was approaching, I was burdened by its gravity and was hesitant to speak. A few weeks ago, I overheard a conversation between parents in which one said, they wish they could speak to you today. I realized that having your attention and the opportunity to be heard is a privilege, not a burden. As a result, I thought I would share some of the relevant pieces of these conversations that echo constantly in my head, hoping they give you some insight into some of the more abstract consequences of that day. On May 7th, 2019, this man issued a life sentence to our community. He sentenced Kendrick to death. He sentenced John and Maria to a life without their beautiful son. A kind, generous young man in whom they invested every ounce of their being, intentionally raising him to be the antithesis of this man. He sentenced them to a lifetime of lovingly watching Kendrick's friends and classmates achieve their goals, accomplish great things, and transition through life's milestones. He sentenced some of the people in room 107 to a lifetime of anxiety, nightmares, constantly searching for exits, and others to a lifetime of distrust, random crippling panic attacks, and flashbacks. Many will spend the rest of their lives trying to understand how in that unspeakable chaos. Their brain could have been so consumed with getting to safety that they couldn't process that there was a person, their classmate, that they were stepping around as they ran out that door. They're sentenced to a lifetime of wondering if somehow they had processed that situation faster and would have stopped to help Kendrick if they could have saved him. A lifetime of what ifs. He sentenced the families in room 107 to a lifetime of approaching holidays, accomplishments, and celebrations with the knowledge that if not for Kendrick and the other brave souls in room 107, these moments would not be. He sentenced us all to a lifetime of trying to feel joy while simultaneously feeling gut-wrenching sorrow for John and Maria, and a lifetime of trying to disentangle these two polar opposite emotions. He sentenced the other teachers, students, staff, parents to a lifetime of living with the knowledge that they are not immune. This happened in our community. To a lifetime of trying to heal, trying to be brave, pretending they're okay, trying to not be that kid or that person when something seemingly normal frightens them or when emotion rears its head, trying to figure out what normal should look like as they move through life wondering who may endanger them next, and that if they let their guard down, it could happen again. He sentenced the deputies, SWAT, firefighters, and EMT to a lifetime of the mental images of seeing the young man shot dead in his classroom with his bleeding classmates trying to stop this shooter and others frantically, desperately searching for something they could try to stop the bleeding with. As we learned that in the months leading up to May 7th, 2019, this man and his partner planned mass murder in their free time, planning ways to murder their unsuspecting friends, classmates, and community members as their recreation. It brought them pleasure. From their fantasy of throwing a party, locking everybody in a building and setting it on fire, to their plan to line up our kids, our babies, against the whiteboard and gun them all down. This was the pleasure that they pursued. As this man carefully planned how he would acquire his father's guns and use them to terrorize his classmates, how he would set his family home ablaze so responders would be elsewhere, allowing him more time to kill the maximum amount of people. Not once did he allow his conscience to prevail. If it had, we wouldn't be here. When they concealed the guns, packed an immense amount of ammunition, when they pulled the magnets off the doors, preventing anyone on the outside from helping, when they blocked both exits so no one could escape, there was no thought of compassion or leniency, no respect for life. He calculated and used every tool at his disposal for maximum harm and to perpetrate evil. I respectfully request that as you prepare to issue your punishment for this loathsome act, that you consider the value of all the lives that were saved by the bravery of Kendrick and the others. These courageous individuals did not react to save themselves. They acted selflessly to save others. Please loudly and boldly honor the value of every life he attempted to take and the courage and sacrifice of the brave individuals who stopped him by issuing the maximum sentence for each attempted murder count consecutively. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brockler?
Aaron Christian would like to address the board, Your Honor.
My name is Erin Christian, ErinChristian. There is no way to adequately encapsulate the horror that Devon wreaked upon my life due to his actions on May 7th, 2019. When I found out that he was one of the gunmen, my knees buckled. While he was shooting bullets into the bodies of his classmates, into the walls and ceiling of our school, I huddled on the floor on the other side of the wall, in clear sight of a note that he had written me in 7th grade. It was pinned on a corkboard above my desk, and I kept student cards and notes for a long time. His was on a piece of copy paper that had a pencil printed on it, and the white space at the bottom, he had thanked me and called me his favorite teacher. Devon's 7th grade year was my first year of teaching, and I was brand new to Colorado and the profession. I felt unsure of myself in a lot of ways, worried that I were somehow letting my students down with how green I was at the time. But notes like his from other students reminded me of why I was pursuing this career path. I had to have done some things right. I have since destroyed his note. Never would I have guessed that the talented, bright, effervescent boy that I knew at that time would take a precious life like Kendrick's and traumatize so many others. The screams and the gunshots, the blood and the terror have lived with me every day since May 7th. I would hear his phantom voice yelling, "I have a gun," every time roofers in my neighborhood used a nail gun. A loud door slam to this day at a different school conjures up images for me of blood in the hallway. The horrible song, Pumped Up Kicks, sends me into hysterical crying whenever I hear it played in a public setting, which is lamentably too often. My sleep is broken and restless, and I wake up with headaches and jaw pain from grinding my teeth on an almost daily basis. In the immediate days after, at the crisis center and vigils, I hugged Devon's classmates and his friends, my coworkers. I held them as we cried together, and I heard them all say, "We didn't know." So many students and staff expressed such remorse, such heavy guilt, as if somehow some kind word or gesture, some action as yet unknown, could have softened his heart and steered him down a different path. But what could we have done? We will never know, but it isn't our fault. We didn't make that choice to harm others. We didn't have murder in our hearts. That is solely on the shoulders of those who pulled the triggers. I've always been an anxious person by nature, but the shooting has triggered in me a profound depression that I have never experienced prior. There are so many days when I struggle with a crushing sense of emptiness and loss. My brain has become a battlefield upon which I fight for hope and joy. Devon's violence has altered me, but also strengthened me, because I do rise from that tar-like darkness that threatens to envelop me time and time again. To not only find that I have hope and joy, but work to be a source of it for others. I have not been defeated by the cruelty that he brought with him on May 7th. Our community will not be defeated. In the 2 years, 4 months, and 10 days since the shooting, I have worked doggedly to heal from my trauma. But PTSD causes neurobiological changes in the brain. And there are some things that never fully leave a person. And thus I will never fully be the version of myself that I was on May 6th. None of us in the school were given a choice as to what would happen to us on that day or how we would be irrevocably changed. Kendrick was not given a choice. But those of us who have survived, we do have choices now. I choose to continue on my path toward healing and supporting the community that Devon tried to destroy. I choose to remain a source of positivity for the world. I choose to continue to care for, support, and trust my students. His betrayal of our community did not rob me of that, nor did it rob so many other community members who have rallied since then. Finally, I choose to forgive him and wish that he learned from this rock bottom of his life. This is the last kind word I have for him. Violence is never the answer to pain or loneliness or suffering. The only answer is love, and Kendrick had that in abundance. I choose to be like Kendrick.
You. Mr. Brockler.
Aiden Morrison, Your Honor.
My name is Aiden Morrison, AIDEN MORRISON. There you go. My name is Aiden. I've never talked to Devon, never met Devon, but for some reason he still had some hate in him that wanted to destroy my life. Some random kid who've never met. Before May 7th, I was just an average 8th grader going about my day. On the last days of school, I had a soccer tournament that weekend. I was in room 103 with Miss Hoffman, working on a history project I had. I was filming some scene with Nikita Khrushchev where he was sipping tea and telling us about Russia. While we were filming this, we heard someone say, "Nobody effing move, I have a gun." My teacher then ushered us into the corner of the room, where we heard many gunshots and a lot of yelling. During this, I texted my mom, "A kid yelled they have a gun and now we're on lockdown. I'm scared." I thought that might be the last time I ever talked to her. I thought I might die. I thought, is someone else dead? Is anyone else hurt? In hindsight, this doesn't really seem like something an 8th grader would be thinking on a Tuesday in the last month of school. When I was leaving my classroom that day, I had to walk through the emergency exit where there was a puddle of blood. I know now that that was Kendrick's blood. It's still on the shoes I was wearing that day. And it still impacts me to my day, to this day. I spend almost every night trying to avoid sleep so I don't have a nightmare where May 7th plays again in my head. So I don't wake up fearing somebody outside my door with a gun. I still go to STEM, but it made it very unbearable. Every time a door slams or someone stomps, I have to check behind me and check the door to make sure there's no one there with a gun. You've given me PTSD and made it so I can't be happy anymore. You think you're cool for that if you sat there throughout the trial showing no remorse. Devon's a monster and a failure. Somehow I'll overcome my PTSD and be able to go out in public with my family again. But I hope Devon can't. I hope Devon suffers as much pain as he's put me through. I hope Devon is in prison for the rest of his life and never sees the outside world again. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brockler.
Garrett Lowry, Your Honor.
Your Honor, my name is Garrett Lowry, GarrettLowry. I came here today extremely unprepared, as you can see. I came here so I could get one final piece of closure that I felt I could never get. The events that unfolded on May 7, 2019 were no events that any eighth grader or any elementary student should have had to experience. And as somebody who was in eighth grade during the events of the shooting in room 106 across the hall, to this day, I can still not comprehend what had happened. I cannot imagine what went through somebody's brain to commit these horrid actions against me, my friends. That day, I was in math. I was going through quadratic equations with Miss Giese, and at 1:53, we heard somebody hit the wall and shots were fired. To this day, I still have flashbacks while doing quadratic equations. And to this day, I haven't worn this necklace since the day of the shooting. I promised myself that I would not touch this here necklace until he was brought to justice. And that day has come. Your Honor, I hope that you give him the maximum sentence for each attempted murder and bring it into your heart that he tried to murder hundreds of students, traumatize thousands. I have friends that don't even want to leave their home anymore. I have friends that have quit school due to their trauma. And I wish he never sees the light of day. Thank you.
Thank you. Brockler.
Jennifer Kraus.
Hi, Your Honor. My name is Jennifer Kraus, Kraus. I'm Mitchell's mom. I wasn't going to speak, but this morning, for the first time, we went and saw Kendrick this morning, and I figured I owed it to him. It occurred to me, I don't know why it didn't occur to me before, that he achieved in his short life more than most people do in an entire lifetime and then some. And it also occurred to me that my son was no longer going to be a victim. He and the others that have survived this are now survivors. They're no longer victims. You can't have my son. Instead, I'd like to go on with life as well as my family, instead of letting Devon Erickson haunt us anymore, to focus on the good people and the good things that are coming. I would like to focus on Kendrick and remember him and remember his goodness and remember all the kids in the classroom that had the amazing bravery and the teachers and our first responders and oh my God, the police and they're so amazing. I know oftentimes it feels like maybe they don't feel like they get enough respect, but they were there in our hour of need and when we needed them the most. And I will never, ever, ever forget them. And I will always remember how much I appreciate them. I also want to remember and appreciate the doctors that saved my son's life. And I want to remember Rocco and Logan. If they hadn't done what they had done, I don't know if my son would still be here. They're my heroes as well. I want to remember the DAs and everything they've gone through. And thank you so much for letting George stay on this case. It meant the world. And I thank you so much for that. You're amazing. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I want to remember our jurors that took so much time out of their own personal lives to really be open-minded and be here for us and give us justice. And I want to thank you for what you do and for having to sit in this courtroom day after day and listen to these monstrous tales of people that should no longer be amongst us. And I want to put the name of Devon Erickson to rest. I never want to think of him again. I never want to speak his name again. He will be gone to me. Only the beautiful sound of Kendra Castillo and all of the survivors and the good people and the people that help. No longer him, ever again. You can't have this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brockler.
Calista Baraga, Your Honor.
Calissa Braga, Kalissa. Braga is Braga. We are finally to the point of someone deciding your life's path. You made a choice, multiple choices that got you here today. The problem is, those choices changed my life path also. My kids' life path, my family's. Everything changed on May 7th, 2018 for us. Not because of what we did, but because of your choices. I understand your defense team spent months trying to prove that these weren't actually your choices, that you were forced that day. But the jurors saw through that. We all saw through that. You see, you had so many times when you could have stopped it, where you could have made another choice and sent us all down another life path. I hate that your choice, not ours, is why we're all different and why we're all hurting and broken. Trauma. We all think we know what it is, but man, once you're living it, it's when you truly know. It's when your kids at 5 or 7 or 10 can tell someone that they've been in a school shooting so they can no longer do that, whether it be practicing riflery at Boy Scouts or enjoying fireworks on the 4th of July. They know what their triggers are most of the time. They know what they're comfortable with or not. We've spent 2 years in weekly counseling to get to that point, but we shouldn't have to, and we wouldn't have to if you hadn't orchestrated and carried out the May 7th shooting. It was another normal day. My 2nd and 5th grader went to school. I dropped my 5-year-old at preschool for the morning while running errands with the 11-month-old I nannied. After a call from a fellow PTO mom whose son was sick in the ER, I agreed to change my plans from heading to STEM on Thursday to serve lunch to this day instead to cover her shift. A little harder since I had the baby in preschool pickup, but not a big deal. It was Teacher Appreciation Week, and we were trying our best to show as much love as possible to our staff at STEM. It was almost the end of the year, and everyone was ready to be done, so it was a great week to thank them all for giving everything to our kids. Little did I know how truly thankful for them all I would be by the end of the day. I got to son pushing the baby in his car seat and stroller after grabbing my 5-year-old from preschool and helped move food from the elementary lounge to the middle school lounge. We were there often, and it was normal for my little one. She spent her time trying to grab goodies from the food we were setting out and had just settled at a table with the cookie while talking to the baby by her. And then it all started. The screaming, the shooting, and the chaos. I quickly ran from the lounge to the staff bathroom with the help from a staff member in order to hide with the kids. The lounge had mostly glass doors, and I was too worried that I wouldn't be able to hide the stroller safely in there. So to the bathroom we went. As we sat on the cold floor of a men's one-room bathroom, I realized there was really nowhere to go. I managed to wedge the 2 kids between the sink and the toilet so that if bullets came from either way, they would be somewhat protected there. Unfortunately, what I didn't know was it also put us on the other side of the wall of the hallway where everything happened. Pretty certain we were not leaving alive, I silently called my husband on my phone to tell him goodbye. He argued with me as nothing was on the news and no notifications had gone out at this point, as lockdown hadn't even started yet. And then he was notified and the announcement overhead started. Locks, lights, out of sight. I heard that recording for weeks everywhere I went. My 5-year-old would sing it without even realizing it, another factor of trauma you never think about. I whispered to my husband that I loved him. He begged me not to hang up the phone no matter what, though many times I was too scared to breathe, let alone talk to him. My 5-year-old got on to talk to him.
He and I were assuming it was probably the last time. To watch your baby call the love of your life and tell him how she's being so quiet and so good, it's heartbreaking. She had no idea she was saying goodbye. She was just proud of how good she was being. In fact, for weeks, every single person she met, she would start by telling them there was a shooter at the school, and she stayed really quiet and was really good. Not many people know how to answer back to that when that's how a little girl introduces herself to them, but it was a huge part of her for a long time. Because of your choice, it always will be. Many times I'd hear shouting and screaming and things breaking, assuming they were coming my way. But somehow these tiny people with me didn't say a word. I still don't know how to this day. My 5-year-old, who is 7 now, never stops talking, and the poor baby had been due for a bottle when this all began. I had planned to run in, help set up and go, so I hadn't even brought in the diaper bag. But still, not a word from either one. We just had to wait. And eventually, the door was broken into. We had been in the dark for quite a while, so when the door was broken into suddenly, with light streaming in, and 3 large men with rifles silhouetted in the light, I froze. One of those rifles was pointed straight at my 5-year-old's forehead. And that sweet girl looked at me and asked me if they were going to shoot her. At this point, I had figured out that they were SWAT. I promised her that no, they were the good guys. So the same one who had pointed a rifle moved it to his back and picked her up and was running out of the school with her in front of him. She still tells us now some of the things she saw on the way out, and none are things meant for any child, kid, or person. I'm not sure what she all saw. It took me much longer to make it out with the stroller over the broken glass, while hiding periodically from what they thought was a possible third shooter still. And it wasn't over. We were now running out of the school, hiding behind cars, running from one to another, ushering kids to what we were hoping was the next safe spot. We got past the cars, saw snipers on the roof, and began running down the driveway, across the street, and now we waited. You see, I had made it out at this point, but I still had 2 kids inside. Many friends and many friends' kids. I sent multiple pictures of friends as I found their kids, handed my phone over to kids to call their families. Not real long after, my 2nd grader made her way out with her class. She was cold and scared, but she was there. My 5th grader, he still hadn't made it out. In fact, no matter who I asked, no one knew where he or his class was. As much as I wanted to, I couldn't get back in to find him. So I did what I could to help load kids onto buses and help keep them out of the rain. I sent my 5 and 7-year-old with my 2nd grader's teacher, as she is a close friend and I trusted her. I knew my husband would be at the rec center by now to meet them. I kept the baby with me in the stroller to try to keep him dry and safe. At this point, all the kids on our side had been loaded up and taken to the rec center, and still no one could tell me where my son was. I finally crawled into the back of a police cruiser with a victim's advocate to avoid the continued rain, though I was soaked by this point, but refused to leave until I knew where he was. I couldn't do it because it felt like giving up. We sat there in the rain, watching everyone slowly leave, me a mess of emotions, when I finally have a call on my phone from an unknown number. I answered, and hear my son on the other end of the phone. And that's when I lost it. He was safely at the rec center. In fact, he was one of the first out. He's the one on the front page picture with his hands up with his class every time the story makes the news again. He was alive. And I know every second of every day how lucky I was to say that. How lucky I was to take my babies all home. How lucky my husband, whose whole family was inside, was to take us home. We know not everyone got to do that. But what we know is we aren't the same. My kids and my family is broken. Broken because of your choices. Because instead of taking responsibility for your actions and owning up to them, you shot up a school. You're a coward and a murderer. My now 10-year-old used to be an outgoing, spunky, try-anything kid. She's too scared to even go to the bathroom alone at school now because she's scared of being stuck in there during a shooting. She holds my hand almost everywhere in public. She doesn't miss anything. Any flinch I have, she sees. She reacts. It literally never leaves us. My youngest. I At Home Depot one time, she saw broken glass on the ground in the garden center and was suddenly gone. We found her hiding because she assumed there was a shooter there because of all the glass that ran over on the way out of the school that day. Yes, my baby associates broken glass with someone trying to kill her. I can't go anywhere with people around unless I'm on the edge or at a wall, so no one is behind me. I've almost jumped on an unmarked security guard at church because I thought he was a gunman. I could give you almost daily examples of how this has affected our family, but every family in that school has a similar story. My son and my husband try so hard to be strong, to take care of everyone, but that shouldn't be on their shoulders. I hate that they feel they have to do that you did that to them, to us. There's so many examples of how this has affected us, all of us. You have a list of charges of named victims, but that's not even close to the list of actual victims. Please, Your Honor, remember during sentencing that there's a school, a community, a large group of people affected by this, people who will live with this for the rest of their lives, people who feel guilty for being affected because it wasn't as bad as someone else's, or people who are reminded daily. To the defendant, I hope you will live that horrible day the rest of your life. I hope you regret every choice you made that day. But most of all, I hope you remember that you could have stopped it all and you didn't. You made the choice, so live with it. I know we all are.
Mr. Brockler.
Heather Morrison, you're up.
Hi, Your Honor. I apologize. I'm a nervous speaker as it is. Judge Slade and Devon, this is one of the two hardest letters I've ever had to write. The other one being to your co-defendant. How does one sum up so much pain and suffering through the eyes of their children in a way it affects the whole family unit in one letter? See, I go back and forth between telling you the truth about how bad things have been or telling you how we're going to survive and you're not going to affect us any longer. Because Devon, you wanted to affect us. We heard it every day sitting here. In your twisted thinking and immature mind, you felt like you were the center of the world. So much so that you took it upon yourself to affect every child, teacher, adult, and family in that school that day. 2 of my kids were in school that day, 2 of the 5. One was in 6th grade and upstairs. He's basically only affected by the lockdown sounds now. But my other son, who just spoke, Aiden, let you know how much more directly impacted he was. He was one of the kids in the hallway, enjoying the last few days of school, having silly fun with their friends, filling projects for social studies class. You and your co-defendant yelled, quote, "Get the fuck down," and began slamming people against walls. My son was on the other side of that door. He heard everything you said. The teacher class that he was in the time, their training told him not to let him back into that classroom. Thank God she did, because that's what saved my kid's life. Because of your incompetence, bullets didn't always just spray into 107, but into all the other classrooms as well. My son cowered in that room, sending a text to his brothers, his dads, his sisters, and I still have that text, and I won't share it with you because that's the thing that I have that you can't take. But he said something to the effect of, "Mom, I'm sorry we argued about picking up my room last night. Someone's got a gun. He's yelling to get the fuck down, and I don't think I'm gonna make it out." He heard all the wrestling in 107. When SWAT came in to take him out, he put his hands up because he knew that he didn't need to get shot too. So he wasn't able to take his phone to the rec center. It took us 5 hours
to find out if our kid was alive or dead. He stepped over all the bullets that came out of your co-defendant's pockets. He stepped through Kendrick's blood. He still has the blood on those shoes and the pants that he was wearing that day. When I finally found him, he had blood on his hands and all over his clothes. He didn't visibly stop shaking for 3 days after. Devon, I know you're immature and I know you don't know what it's like to be an adult. You probably never will know what it's like to have children because of this. But Devon, when you finally mature and you're sitting in that cell for the rest of your life, God willing, thinking about what you've done, I hope you somehow, some way learn to understand the sheer horrific position that you've put everyone in. After I received that text, Devon, I didn't hear from my son for 5 hours. We didn't know if he was alive or dead. I was in my emergency medical technician training at the time and had access to all the radios that the paramedics and police were using. I knew what time to run over to the rec center, and I knew to look for the board if my kid's name was on it or not. I grew up in a bad childhood myself, Devon. I had parents that today probably would not be recognized for the great brand of discipline that they provided. But everyone has a story, and so many are not dissimilar to you or your co-defendants. The difference between you and all the other people, Devon, is that most people turn their tough lives into how can I help? They go into nursing, they go into teaching, they go into emergency medicine, they go into being a police officer. How can I help the kids that were in the position I was in? How can I help my community? How can I help other kids and parents to learn how to better handle their emotions so that I don't inflict more pain? Devon, you thought you were this big, tough thing behind a gun. You're so arrogant that you wrote the word God on your chest. Everybody has trouble, Devon, everybody. And you chose to take your typical teenage stupidity and made everyone else suffer. That's your deficiency, Devon. See, because you didn't know my kids. My kids were in middle school and kindergarten. What you would have known if you'd actually gotten sober and manned up and did what you were supposed to do was to know that if you knew us, we would have taken both you and your co-defendant in. We would have loved you. We would have helped him in his transition. We would have supported you. I would have helped you get any help you needed because that's the kind of household I live in. But instead, you and your co-defendant just tried to destroy our lives. My son, who was in 8th grade at the time, has been working since the age of 5 years old to get ready to live out his dream of going to the United States Air Force Academy. It's been in his mind since 3rd grade to take on extracurricular activities, to take more challenging classes, to volunteer in his community, not only because it's the right thing to do, because that work would help him fulfill his dream of being in the academy. There's a good chance, Devon, that you took that from him. Since this has happened, he can't sleep a full night the past 2.5 years. He still has dreams about running from bullets. He still relives it all in his head any given time of day. We're unable to take family trips now, which is something that we couldn't even try to do until last year because we were taking care of our responsibilities. We can't close doors in our house because of the noise they make. We can't go to playgrounds with my twin 5-year-olds. We can't go to swimming pools. We can't go into stores because everywhere we go, my son is looking for the nearest exit. We can't hear kids laugh and cry and play because it sounds too much like the kids that day in the room. He's had to be medicated for the depression, for the PTSD, for the anxiety, for the sleep he doesn't get. You took his sense of security, you took his sense of safety, and you took every child in that school's innocence way earlier than they ever should have had to face. The one thing I look back on and so grateful for, Devon, was that you and your co-defendant were absolute idiots. Because neither one of you had half a brain cell, the body count at that school would have been so much higher. And the fact that you thought the heroes in that room that day would not have stopped either one of you is beyond me. It's because of the heroes in that room that you weren't able to carry out the rest of your plan. I hope you remember for the rest of your life that when even hiding behind a gun, you still couldn't be successful. And you know why that is? Because when evil shows up in the face of good, it never wins. What's even more ironic than all of this, Devon, is that you couldn't even do it sober. You hid behind drugs, you hid behind a gun, and you hated your own family enough that you tried to set their house on fire. I thank God every day that you and your co-defendant were so stupid that you had the most see-through plan, stoned yourself to such oblivion that you couldn't function, and didn't even know how to use the guns properly. See, Devon, most of us understand that high school sucks. It sucks for everyone. But good people go on and they learn that it was sucking for everyone else too. Just in different ways. When you finally mature and you finally understand, well, we were all just going through our own thing and yours wasn't that much different than anyone else's, you'll be old, running in a cell, hopefully, and think, what the heck did I do? Devon, you took away so many dreams of so many kids that are affected for the rest of their lives, and they actually put in the work to get those lives for themselves. To any parole board members, judges, or anyone else who may look at these statements in the future, it's my sincere opinion that Devon and his co-defendant cannot be rehabilitated. It's my opinion that since he should serve the rest of his life behind bars, I know that although my family and I may recover, we will not ever not be serving a punishment inflicted on us by Devon and his co-defendant for the rest of our lives. The punishment comes to us through altered plans, like for my son who likely will not be able to serve in the military now and protect his country. It affects my autistic oldest son who wasn't in the building but tried to stay on the phone with his brother to try to keep him calm while my husband and I ran to the rec center to see if our kids were still alive. It comes in my career of serving others through nursing and medicine because I constantly worry if I leave the house today, I may not see my kids tomorrow. School is a place where not all kids feel safe because of fitting in or worrying about not being popular or about making a sports team. But you've inflicted on my family the very real fear of having to worry that my kids are going to be killed by a kid with no guidance who decide to hide behind a gun. Devon, if you or your co-defendant ever reached out to the people who cared so much about you at school, all the teachers, all the students, we would have helped you. We would have been there for you. I would have welcomed you with open arms. I would have tutored you so you could graduate. My husband would have tutored you so you could graduate. We would have helped your co-defendant in his transition. We would have let you stay in our home anytime you felt like you couldn't be at home or didn't feel safe. But instead, you decided to take a gun and destroy our lives. You even destroyed kindergartners. There is kindergarten through 12th grade at that school. He committed this crime in the middle school section. They were just little kids. And I hope that one day you mature enough that you can understand the true depths of how heinous your act has been. I hope you spend the rest of your life incarcerated, reflecting on the understanding that the safety that you took from so many people. There are thousands and thousands of people who are now affected by your cowardly actions. See, Devon, now when it comes down to it, what we have, and God willing you'll never see again, is our freedom in our lives. Even though you've altered it for the last 2.5 years intensely, and you may to a degree for the rest of our lives, you will have the rest of your life knowing that you killed one of the kindest souls on the planet, and you robbed a childhood from so many people. I hope you sit with that, and sit with that, and sit with that. I pray whatever you believe in forgives you someday, because Devon, I don't know how much the rest of us will be able to. And when you're sitting in that cell 20 and 30 years from now, we'll be living life and you'll be a mere anecdote in our story. I pray that we as the people on the outside can get back on track. But Devon, even if we aren't getting back on the track we're on, we're still going to be better than what you and your coward co-defendant did. I ask you, Judge Slade, looking at these statements anytime in the future for parole hearings or probation or whatever the court system holds for Devon in his future. I ask that you never release this person. He's shown he just doesn't care. He showed not 1 ounce of remorse during the trial, the whole 3 weeks. He didn't show an ounce of remorse every other court hearing that we've been at. It's my solid belief that this person cannot be rehabilitated. This person's blamed everyone else for his crimes, and he takes no accountability on his own. So I beseech that you never let him out, because Devon, you'll always be Devon, the coward that couldn't, and we will always be Stump Strong. Thank you.
Thank you. Before the next person comes up, I want to remind everybody to direct your comments to me. Brockler.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I hope I pronounced this right. Sakitha Sprague.
Thank you, Your Honor, for giving me an opportunity to speak today. I was really hesitant.
Hold on.
Oh, my name is Sakitha Sprague. My first name is spelled S like Sierra, Y-K-E-T-H-A. Last name Sprague, S like Sierra, P-R-A-G-U-E. I'm the mother of Khalil McRoy, otherwise known as Kai. I felt I needed to make a statement because ever since May 7th, 2019, I've had this confusion and inability to even look John and Maria in the eyes, because I also am the mother of an only child. And every time I celebrate Christmas or his birthday or Mother's Day, I can't help but think about the pain they must be going through with the loss of Kendrick. I can't stop asking, what possessed you to do something so horrible? I become so angry every time I remember May 7th, 2019. I grew up in an extremely unsafe community. From my earliest memories, violence was an everyday occurrence. I wanted a different life for my child. I prayed from the moment God blessed me with my son Kai that he would never have to suffer the horrible experiences and memories I encountered in my childhood. But on May 7th, 2019, that hope came to an abrupt end when you, Devon Erickson, decided to take it upon yourself to unleash your evil plan in Miss Harper's classroom. The pain of your actions have and will continue to cause devastating pain. Your actions on May 7, 2019 have robbed so many lives, created so many wounds. Mere words cannot express how deeply the pain of your actions have scarred. How dare you take it upon yourself to shatter so many hopes, wishes, dreams with your selfish, murderous actions? 1,000,000 years could not heal the pain of your actions on May 7th, 2019. Your actions can never be undone. I pray daily that God can heal the wounds, the scars, the pain your evil actions have caused in so many lives. I pray that you acknowledge what you have done. I pray that you beg forgiveness of each and every person you have harmed. But most of all, I pray God have mercy on your soul for robbing us of Kendrick. Thank you.
Mr. Brockler.
Your Honor, Nakia Thomas, please.
My name is Nikaya. It's spelled Nykiah. Thomas, Thomas. My daughter, Masaya, she was in algebra class on May 7th. She was shot. At the time, we didn't know how many times because both her legs were bleeding. What I remember from that day was her calling me and telling me she was shot. And she did not know how many times because both of her legs were bleeding. The doctor told her that they would not remove the bullet. Excuse me. It was too close to her femoral artery. Judge, I think that they knew better. The statement I remember them or Devon saying is don't put your hands on the trigger unless you're ready to shoot. This showed no regard for human life. He deliberately shot at all these students and caused my daughter to be shot in the process. She was 14 years old, had no idea what was going on. She often tells me about being drugged through other people's blood. And how her clothes were ripped off. She tells me of how she was drugged out in other people's blood and how it just happened so fast. I think he deserves whatever consequences he gets for his demonic actions. I just wanted to say we will always remember Kendrick and the sacrifices he made for the rest of these kids that were impacted. All I ask is that you give him the maximum sentence that he deserves. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brockler.
Your Honor, Eurizia Ojeda Ayala and Fernando Montoya.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for allowing us to address you. My name is Eurizia Ojeda Ayala, YURITZIAOJEDA-AYAL.
My name is Fernando Montoya, FERNANDOMONTY.
Your Honor, our life changed forever. On May 7, 2019, that was the day our son, Gerardo Montoya Ojeda, was shot several times. Once in the head that went in and out, another one in the arm, left arm, bicep, that also went in and out. And and another bullet also on the left arm. That was only a grace. Up until now, 2 years later, our family has been going through a lot, not only emotionally, physically, but also economically at some point. We've never imagined that our son, our family has to go through all of this. We drove many miles every single day for our son and our daughter to be at a school where they can succeed, they could be challenged. Since that moment, we received the text from my daughter that there was a shooting happening. Our life has tremendously took a different turn. We both suffer from anxiety, just having the fear that our son or our daughter will be hurt, or just thinking that they would ever go back to school and we'll be able to hold them again. As a mother and as an educator, I struggle a lot. It's a tremendous challenge to get to work and just thinking that in my elementary school where I work, there could be a shooting happening. You know, it's always throughout the day that I get triggered or there's anxiety kicks in. Just having the fear, you know, that this can happen in my own school. I look at my students and I see my son and my daughter. I continue to struggle going to sleep. We all have the same trouble sleeping and resting. This crime that Devon committed, that he planned to kill everyone in room 107, has been devastating for our family.
As a father, feels that this can happen again. The fears that my wife call from school or text me that it's another shooting is happening in her school or my son or my daughter. It's still the fear in there. It's very horrible to keep up with this on our family, and I believe in everybody else. We lost a very brave young man, Kendra Castillo, and we could have lost many more as well, the teachers, good teachers, and we just want the right justice for all of us.
Up until now, it's been 2 years, and both my son and my daughter have not been able to go back to school. They've isolated. They're at home. That's the only place they feel safe. We do our best we can to support them, keep them safe, bring back the joy, the happiness moments, you know, and just to live our life as normal as possible. My son has had physical therapy for the past 2 years, and that had only support and strengthened his arm, but it did not take the pain away. He now has to live with the pain every single day of that bullet that went in and out his arm and how the damage that it caused. He has to live with that pain the rest of his life. Another challenge in his life that he has to face every single day because of this coward murder acts that Devon did. My daughter has had anxiety attacks, has isolated, has not been able to go back to school. She's a junior this year in high school. She should be with friends, socializing, having fun. My son had dreams of being a soccer player and playing with college or university level, and those dreams have shattered. He has not been able to play. He cannot trust anybody, not even his friends. My daughter has not been able to be back to her swimming team, has not been able to ice skate. because they both lost the innocence and lost the trust on May 7th. We're finding ways to be as adventurous and happy and outdoors all of the time that we've used to. We're trying our best to do that, but it's so hard. It's a struggle that we have to face every single day. And we know with the faith of God, we will get there. But we definitely want a justice, not for only for us, but for everybody. On May 7th, a precious life was taken. The life of Kendrick Castillo, our hero. Your Honor, we know that there's still a lot ahead of us. My daughter, Bina Jr., has a long journey still of education. And my son, getting closer to college, he continues to take online classes. And we know that hopefully one day they will be back at school. Hopefully, we pray for him, for her, for everybody, for John and Maria, that they never get to see their son again. Your Honor, we know that there are two major purposes in criminal justice. One is to pursue the justice of the protection of the innocent. However, we're both convinced that for the purposes to be met, that Devon should be punished with the maximum available sentence without the possibility of parole. He deserves that. And for the rest of them, for all of the people who were hurt, not only in room 107, but everybody who was traumatized that day on that May 7th, deserve that this is giving to him, Kendrick Castillo, and to ensure that the message that is sent to the community, to our country, to our state, is that in hopes that these type of crimes will end. I want to direct the attention to the evil acts, that Devon Erickson committed. I hope you analyze it to the fullest extent, and justice could be forever served. The pain that he inflicted upon us and everyone that day will continue for many years. We do not want another school shooting. A place where kids should have fun, should be learning, socializing, and the place where they spend most of the day, more even than at home, should continue to be a safe place. And for that to happen, we need to send that message to people who are cowards, just like that murderer, to receive the maximum sentence and pay for all the pain that he has inflicted and the life that he has taken. We thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Brockler.
Allison Thompson, Your Honor.
My name is Allison Thompson, ALISONTHOMPSON. May 7th, 2019 was supposed to be an ordinary day. Kendrick came into one of my classes and we started planning our senior trip for that summer. We were going to go camping and Kendrick was being stubborn about going somewhere he didn't know very well. He left that day with promises to hang out after school. May 10th, 2019 was supposed to be our last day of high school. We probably would have celebrated with Andy's and a drive through fancy neighborhoods in Kendrick's Jeep. most likely spinning a story of why we might be visiting multi-million-dollar houses on the off chance our presence was questioned. May 18th, 2019, I was supposed to graduate with my best friend. June 27th, 2019, Kendrick was supposed to send me off to basic training at the Air Force Academy. We had it written down that it was one of the only times we were allowed to cry. Then, when we had kids, and maybe when we got married. That summer, he was supposed to drive his Jeep through Rampart Range, watch me in basic, and take a couple videos of him yelling through a megaphone in the general direction of the academy that we could laugh at when I was out. What wasn't supposed to happen was me getting flashbacks to May 7th every morning when our doors were getting rattled to wake us up. I wasn't supposed to come close to tears thinking about what got me to the Air Force Academy because Kendrick was always there, making sure I knew I was good enough to attend through all the doubts I had in the application process. I should have been crying like my roommates were because they missed their parents. Instead, I was crying because I was addressing my letters to John and Maria Castillo instead of Kendrick. Even now, my friends reflect on the moments that broke them during basic and can usually pinpoint a particularly hard PT session or meal. But I never felt that because I broke on May 7th. I broke when I was waiting in the high school parking lot to pick up my friend. Windows rolled down so I wouldn't have to turn on the AC, and I heard the gunshots I would later find out killed Kendrick. I broke when the parking lot swarmed with first responders of every department imaginable. I broke when I heard the sigh of relief from my brother when I answered the phone. I broke when he told me what was happening, and he said, "I love you," for the first time. I broke when the text started rolling in from my friend still inside, but yet no reply from Kendrick. I broke when I was at the rec center, frantically searching for my friends and hearing rumors jumping around. Someone saying Kendrick's hurt, he's in the hospital. I broke when I saw John looking for his son, not knowing myself where he might be. When I absolutely shattered, though, was in the area between the double doors at the emergency room entrance. They wouldn't let us in, saying there's no Kendrick Castillo checked in, but I saw the other students in the lobby, so I thought there must be some sort of mix-up. But standing in the sliding glass doors, I heard the words, "Kendrick didn't make it." Everything froze, and I fell to my knees, and I haven't been the same since. Because Devon Erickson woke up one day and made a decision to hurt other people, my best friend died. Because of him, my friends still deal with PTSD. Because of him, I'm going to carry this pain forever. August 7th, 2019 was my graduation from basic training at the academy. Kendrick was supposed to be there. He was supposed to sit behind me at the parade and say things to make me giggle so I would get yelled at. Weekends throughout my first year of college were supposed to be him picking me up so I could get off base and he could take me off-roading. Instead, they were spent with me in my room, contemplating what would help fill this hole that was left in my heart on May 7th. On school breaks, I should be coming home to my friends and making fond memories, not avoiding my hometown at all costs, because everything is a constant reminder that Kendrick is never coming back. May of 2023, Kendrick was supposed to be there to watch me graduate and jokingly salute me. I wanted Kendrick to meet my kids, be a cool uncle, and teach them everything they could want about cars and adventuring. I wanted him to teach them what he taught me, how to have fun. I live every day afraid I might forget what Kendrick's laugh sounded like. I might forget the look on his face when I get quiet in the back of his car because I spilled the tiniest amount of ice cream on his seats and I'm frantically trying to hide it with napkins. I might forget that one time he let me drive his car and he acted like 10 miles an hour was 60. And if I put my hand on the inside of the steering wheel, it would snap my wrist in seconds. I might forget what holidays were like. The Christmas parties Kendrick would throw and would get mad when we didn't pay attention to the movie he put on. The snack bar he had in his basement that I felt guilty taking from because it looked like it had been set up with such care. I'm afraid I'll forget what it felt like to be happy with him. I don't think I'm ever going to get to experience happiness again as I did in those moments with Kendrick. I've never met someone who could make everyone around them so happy, so effortlessly. Now he's gone. When I have kids, how am I going to be able to send them to school? For there might be people wanting to hurt them. What if my kids don't have a Kendrick in their class? What if my kids are the Kendrick for their class and they save their friends, but I lose my son or daughter? There's no amount of remorse that will ever fix or even make any part of what Devon did better. I used to look forward to going to college and growing up, knowing I was going to have friends like Kendrick I could always fall back on, no questions asked. Now the only thing I have left of my friend is his parking pass I hang on my wall and a K I wear around my neck. There's nothing that can be done to fix any of the emotional pain this has caused me, and there's no returning to who I was before this happened.
Thank you. Mr. Brockler.
Sheriff Tony Spurlock, you're on.
Your Honor, my name is Tony Spurlock. I'm the Sheriff of Douglas County. That's S-P-U-R-L-O-C-K. Like the District Attorney, I represent the people of Douglas County. And on May 7th, 2019, the murder of Kendrick Castillo and the attempted murders of all the victims that you've heard speaking today affected this county. And it affected the people that come through this county and know who this county is. I was at the scene that day and I witnessed my deputies carrying victims from the school, rushing them to ambulances and paramedics waiting around the building. That will never change. None of those officers will ever forget those days and those events. All of these victims' lives have been changed, and you've heard that. I ask you, Your Honor, to significantly change this defendant's life. I ask you to use the full weight of the law and sentence this defendant to the maximum amount of sentences possible by the state of Colorado. Thank you.
Mr. Brockler.
Josh Jones, Your Honor.
Hello, Your Honor. I'm just going to run through a couple of things I know because of the defendant. I know what it's like to be thrust into complete chaos in seconds. I know what it's like to not know where your friends, siblings, people that you love are for hours at a time. I know what it's like to have to call your mom. Not knowing whether you're gonna die or not. I know what it's like to get phantom pains in your leg because that's where you were shot twice by someone you thought you knew. I know so much more than I should for somebody my age. For somebody who hasn't done all that much. And importantly, I know the defendant doesn't care. He sees these tears, he doesn't care. He killed Kendrick and he doesn't care. He did this all pre-planned with his buddy, so that way, for unknown reasons to me. He needs to be in jail for as long as, I would implore you to put him in jail for as long as you possibly can. For as long as the law allows. Because he doesn't care, and he won't fix that, he won't change that. He's just gonna remain uncaring about this, in or out of jail. There's so much more that I know because of him. It would take hours to write down everything that I felt and learned because of him, good or bad. One of the most important things I know is that there are people out there willing to sacrifice their lives for you. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Mr. Brockler.
David Jones.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is David Jones, D-A-V-I-D-J-O-N-E-S. After killing Kendrick Castillo, the defendant tried to kill my son, several other kids in that classroom. It took two men larger and stronger than him, beating on him and prying on his fingers to prevent that from happening. I'm going to choose my verb tenses very carefully. The defendant is a killer. The defendant is remorseless in planning. Your Honor, you represent the citizens of Douglas County and the state of Colorado. The current citizens of those two jurisdictions have made it clear that they do not want a remorseless killer walking their streets. I don't have a crystal ball, but I suspect 10 or 20 years in the American penal system will not help him develop the conscience and empathy he clearly lacks. Again, the future is opaque, but I suspect future citizens of Douglas County in the state of Colorado want a killer walking the streets no more than we do. I'm going to request that you serve those present and future citizens of those two jurisdictions by sentencing the defendant to the maximum sentences possible at all times, and if possible, to have those run concurrently. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brockler.
Brendan Biley, Your Honor.
I'm Brendan Biley, first name Brendan, B-R-E-N-D-A-N, last name Biley, B-I-A-L-Y. I don't have any intricate story to tell today, and there's really only one thing that I want to say. The defendant is a loser. And I don't say that as a pejorative or even as an insult. He walked into a classroom armed, full of vulnerable students, and lost. Everyone goes through a struggle, but attempting to shoot up a school as some form of retribution is as reprehensible as it gets. Give Mr. School Shooter Boyfriend the punishment he deserves. Thank you.
Mr. Brockler.
Lauren Harper, Your Honor.
Your Honor, to put the 2.5 years into one document is impossible. 2.5 years have passed since May 7th, and each day brings its own struggles. I had the belief before this that all my students were generally good people. My classroom was a place where students could safely explore the world around them, exchange ideas and discussion with others who saw life differently and from varied perspectives. I encouraged dialogue and introspection from my students, but mostly I encouraged respect and thoughtful consideration. My fellow teacher and I tried to make our classroom and our curriculum fun, entertaining, and engaging. Above all this, we wanted to be teachers that our students could come to us for anything. We tried to show them respect and give them a listening ear.
We would joke with our students, and we tried to spur them on to seek out better lives, not only for themselves, but for those around them. We treated our students like adults and gave them the choice to ultimately seek greater understanding from what we could teach them. The moment that Devon brought a gun in is seared into every fiber of my being. The memory of the first shots that rang out into the room still caused me to hold my breath and tense up, even 2 years later. There's no describing the terror I still experience to this day when I encounter a flashback, hear a sudden loud noise, or even when I wake up from a nightmare. I still often have nightmares of that exact moment. I also have nightmares of the moment that I learned that Kendrick died. I will never forget the look a fellow teacher's eyes had when she had to be the one to deliver the news to me. This young man who I had helped just 1 month before write a job resume. Just 1 month before, I had helped him celebrate his successes with his father. And now he is gone forever. I had to carry these burdens the last few years. The burdens of seeing my students in hospital beds with tubes and bloody bandages on them as their shocked and weeping parents look over their injuries. I have seen students shaking in fear, crying uncontrollably, desperately trying to explain and justify running for their lives and feeling shame that they too did not perish when Kendrick did. I have seen my fellow staff members living in constant fear. As every future student that walks into our classroom, as we scan over their belongings, wondering, is there a weapon inside? I have become afraid of my students. Students who I would never have second-guessed before now scare me. And in the same way, I have lost my trust in them. I now set up my classroom and I think of escape routes. I secretly scan over my students and their belongings multiple times when I teach a lesson. I watch every sudden movement, and often when my student leaves a room, I will guard the door, even while I am still teaching, to make sure that nothing is ever brought back in ever again. This is my daily routine. I now teach younger children because I am afraid of the older ones. I have spent years training to become a high school teacher and to pour into every single life of the teenagers I love. But now I'm terrified of them. I'm terrified of the ones I spent years learning to encourage. I have seen pictures and I have walked past the bloody stains of a young man who gave his life without hesitation for all of us. I have seen the holes not only in my room, but in the bodies of my students. I have lived for years and will continue to do so with the pain and anguish of seeing a grave where there should be a young engineer, a young man who would have changed this world and amazed us all with his genius. I look into the eyes of my students, their parents, my family, my community, and I see the deep gashes of anguish. Like shards of glass, our hearts will always be cut again and again with memories in the absence of what could have been. Then I hear jail phone calls and laughter and joking. I see a total absence of remorse. A feeling in this young man's eyes that I cannot help be filled with rage. And this person who actively tried to get away with mass murder. Devon has given every person in this room a life sentence. He has delivered a lifetime of pain, immeasurable sorrow, and the never-ending struggle to come to terms with what was stolen from us that day. Your Honor, Devon shows no remorse. He has no compassion. I ask you to consider this when you are deliberating sentencing. The only reason not every single person in that room is not currently dead is due to the actions of others, like Kendrick. and my boys and my fellow teacher. He meant, and I'm sorry, my fellow teachers, he meant to kill every person there. He, by definition of the law, and through his own statements, knew the difference between right and wrong that day. He chose wrong. I ask you to look into the eyes of every victim in this room, the parents, the community, but most of all, the eyes of a mother and father who will still have to go to a gravestone every day in order to see their son. See that their hearts will never be whole. I beg you to give us justice, to see an example. In this case, the maximum sentence must be applied. Let no further person who is thinking of committing a crime like this imagine that they can get off easy. I implore you for the sake of my students, but most of all for the sake of Kendrick's parents, to give them the knowledge that Devon will never again set foot on free ground. Kendrick never will be able to. Thank you.
Brockler.
Veronica Albertoni.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Veronica Albertoni, and I'm the mother of Lucas Albertoni.
Can you spell your name, please?
Sorry. Veronica, Veronica, Albertoni, Albertoni.
Thank you.
Your Honor, on May 7, 2019, my son Lucas was shot 3 times in his high school classroom. It was a real miracle that those bullets didn't kill him. They were a few millimeters away from his artery. A movement of his head saved him from a bullet through his head and shattered his shoulder. The miracle was also by all those who took action, like Kendrick, sacrificing his life, the other students and teachers who took action to stop the shooters, and those, as we endlessly get to learn, who in every single step help the wounded, those that were impacted, and every single one that keeps getting impacted by this tragedy. It's been 2 years, more than 2 years. And I keep seeing from the very first day to today, and I know it's gonna keep going, the impact of all this violence in our community, in our teachers, in our students, in our families, our lawyers, our firefighters, our police, medicals. I can't recall them, every single one, but I just keep thinking how lucky my family is. Lucas was able to take action in that classroom, run from one end to the other, escaping the shooters, help shouting through the hallways to guide other students to get out of the school. I think that really helped him with his healing and not being afraid, just facing things. Be practical, don't give in to fear. You have the miracle of your life still in your hands. Treasure that. Devon, you didn't take that for us, but you did that from Kendrick. I have younger siblings, children. They were 6th graders at the school at that time. And again, it was really a miracle for my family. They were away in the school trip that week. But all their classmates, they were there. My daughter, she was scheduled to be in room 163, right across the corner where Jackson disowned Alec in the hallway, still shooting, and Jackson took a bullet there. I cannot imagine what could have happened if they were able to reload as they were planning. My younger son, they're twins, and he would have been scheduled to be in 116. That was the way Lucas was running out, shouting at every other student that there was a shooter, follow him to safety. And he was bleeding, and people were saying, looking at him and saying he was having that blood in his back. He was not aware of that. He only realized about that like 2 blocks away from the school when he finally felt safe to stop and could not run anymore because of his injuries. I'm very practical, and when emotions overcome you, I turn into a cold-blooded, practical person. Like when the nurse called me from the hospital saying, Lucas is here, he's fine, just come directly here, not to the school. I feel blessed that I didn't went through the nightmare of so many parents that took 4 hours for them that their son or daughter were still alive. I knew Lucas was alive. That was enough to hold me until I get to him. I'm still taking my kids, my younger kids, to their school. They love the school for many different reasons, for many different personal struggles. Each one of us has to go through. That school, in one way or another, it's helping us. It's never perfect. It cannot be perfect. We are humans. I'm not going to give in to fear. I'm not taking that path for what my children are fighting. They love their school, and they're going there. They're now starting high school. I passed through that corner when I know Lucas was waiting for help, hoping he can make it to the hospital. And that's still haunting me. But you're not gonna take that from us. We are gonna fight, and we are gonna succeed. My young children, they lost a lot of really, really loved and grateful, great teachers and friends because they needed to leave the school for their personal reasons. Lucas said that after this event, it's much harder to be away from friends, that in one way or another, they shared this experience and supported each other a lot. That's a reason why he transferred back from Montana State University to Colorado University, changing his college's plans. We will never know all the impact and all the little things that are changing our lives, but you can certainly notice that. He's very resilient. He has a lot of his own experiences with birthmark, struggling with dyslexia, with sports made him really strong. So he's working really hard at college and he'll do it. I trust he will be strong and make it. But this is an unfair, much higher price he has to pay to achieve the goal. The bullets, in best case scenario, will be with Lucas for life. I remember my struggles with the doctors. They were saying, please, please don't ask us to take those away. that would have caused so much pain, so much damage on Lucas. And I had to come to terms with that because I know that just letting them be there, let Lucas be able to keep doing sports and so many things that were fundamental for him to heal and recover. He handled things like his birthmark, with kids asking about it, and well checks, hoping no surgery was needed. But lead poisoning from those bullets, even if it's not so bad, nevertheless, it's a different challenge for him. It not only poses a health risk and anxiety over surgery or complications, but it also carries the heavy toll of remembering why those bullets are there. It was not an accident. It's not a natural disease. Not a reward you receive serving for a good cause. This was a covert act of violence, not a simple fight fit in a corner, in a street. They planned this. They planned in a bush and a violence. These are small things compared to what many other families are going through. But nonetheless, healthcare is a financial burden that can become overwhelming. As of today, I couldn't find for Lucas a concrete support for him to long term to take care of his health if those lead poisoning complications would arrive, which they usually do when you're older, when you're in your 60s and your 50s. Everybody's going to forget by then. But Lucas will have to face that. And that's a life sentence for him. Personally, if I have a way to control any further damage, I would not forget. It's difficult to balance. It's not my decision. It's hard to me to be the one remember him to not forget and not to fall to those health complications. I can't stop seeing those bullets in my son. But then at the same time, I'm so grateful for the miracle that spared his life from this planned murder. On my husband, there was a lot of impact or burden in his work, his taking off. We were very supported, and we really appreciate all the support from the community in all the ways. Many times we find ourselves wondering how much we can share with others. You're in a group that is hard to share your experiences. There could be job implications, and you don't want to put all this burden with others. You want your community to be able to go, to smile, to feel safe, and most of all, trust to take your kids to school. I can hardly understand what the Castillo family is going through. It's too much for me to think about it still. Nobody should ever have to go to school thinking they could be ambushed and shot like this. For me, it was very hard and emotional to come here asking for justice, to revive and get to know so many details of what happened in that classrooms. Things that even Lucas was not sharing with us so much, trying to protect us, or as each survivor is trying their best to move forward. Even during the trial, I was thinking about the sacrifices even the jury was doing to be exposed to all these horrible things, horrible images, horrible things, and still care for us and help our community in such a valuable way. So that's why I took it personally to come here and do this service to the community and to our children at school all over the country. Because it's horrible to know that something like this can happen again, and that the perpetrator, for one reason or the other, could be out and about again. Or that we are setting the wrong examples to others who choose to cause harm. We'll live through this nightmare. On May 7, 2019, Devon and Alec did not give us any choice. Lucas was even begging Alec, "You don't have to do this." And Alex was shooting him. He was trying to run away from Devon. This was a coward, planned ambush. It was not random. Today I'm pleading to you to choose safety for many innocent students, teachers, and families. The police, they also expose their life to all this violence. I beg you, allow us to heal from this violence, not fearing that Devon and Alec or someone following their example would be able to get out and be able to cause so much harm and pain again. Thank you, Bjorn.
Thank you. I think you are probably about to tell me who else is next.
I was, Your Honor. If I could have 1 second to consult with defense counsel real quick.
And we're going to take our afternoon recess.
That was going to be my suggestion.
So we will be back in 20 minutes, so 10 minutes to 4.
We're going right to video yet? We are.
Honey, we approach for something that doesn't have to be on the record.
I'm sorry?
We approach for something that does not have to be on the record.
Sure. Right, let's go back on the record then. On Erickson. When we broke, Mr. Brockler, I think you were about to call the next person to speak.
Your Honor, before Maria and John Castillo address the court, we have a video that they've provided us to share today with the defense that we'd like to play.
Okay, is this the video that there was an objection?
That's correct.
You still have that objection?
Yes.
And the objection is?
That there's sections of it that relive the events at the school, the responders, the facts that was litigated in the case. It goes beyond that. It seems like something that was used for perhaps other purposes. I don't know that for a fact. I don't mean to suggest I know that. So that is, I think, an inappropriate statement for the sentencing. And although I think it's going to be repetitive too to what much of what's gone on and what I anticipate the Castillos will say.
The objection's overruled. This is sentencing. You may play your video.
Welcome to my crib. I'm just gonna make it. Hello, work there. Kendrick was hilarious. He was one of the funniest kids I ever knew. Any room he walked into, he was always the light of the room.
I would say he's like a huggable teddy bear. He just always had a larger than life, but very humble personality at the same time.
He always saw the good in people. There was never a moment when he couldn't pick out the best characteristics of somebody.
And he was one of the most giving, charitable people that I knew. He was always willing to give a shirt off his back and more.
Selflessness is the number one way that I describe him. That is Kendrick. We instilled that in him, and he ran with it. he took it to the next level, and he wasn't shy about telling about his faith.
His Catholic faith was very prominent in the way that he lived. He did it all to honor God. Even out in public, we'd say grace. And that's just like powerful. Sing. It impressed me for sure. Kendrick's desire to become a knight was fostered by his dad, John. He saw what John was able to do in helping the community. Between him and John, they've accumulated 2,600 hours of community service to the Knights of Columbus. It's amazing.
He was waiting to graduate high school. His plans were to join the Knights, help them out, and then start his electrical engineering degree. The Knights taught him a lot of things, a lot of charitable things. They also taught him to be a defender of the meek and people who needed help in any way, shape, or form.
It started off as a regular English class. It wasn't until I first saw Kendrick go towards him that I realized that there was something going on.
And John, you're getting information on the shooting. 10 Silver Shooter in room 107.
It was really quick. The gun was pulled out. Kendrick's response was instant.
He immediately jumped the shooter and got the gun pointed away from everyone else. I think in the action that he jumped, because he was going towards him, that's when the shots were fired. Just a couple weeks prior, Kendrick had attended a gun safety course on how to disarm gunmen. He used the same defensive tactics that was taught to police officers.
Kendrick's life on this earth was focused on being kind, generous, and concerned for his friends and his family. It is no surprise that Kendrick sacrificed his life to save others.
Doesn't surprise me at all. It didn't then, and doesn't now. It's just the kind of person he was. He was friends with pretty much everybody in that room, and so he knew that he had to do something.
Kendrick sacrificed his life. He became a shield for others.
If Kendrick hadn't done what he'd done, I wouldn't be here right now.
Kendrick lived verse from the Gospel of St. John. No greater love there is than to lay down one's life for a friend. Kendrick lived that. He imitated that.
Kendrick taught us ultimately that love conquers evil. I think it was his faith that caused him to charge the gunman and to offer himself for others. If Kendrick's death can cause a ripple effect through our community, even through the Knights, about this young man who wanted to be a knight, then in fact will keep his spirit alive, and good can come from this tragedy.
In the days that followed, the world would learn that Kendrick was a faithful Catholic with a heart of gold. Kendrick wanted to join the Knights of Columbus. And so today, we will do something unprecedented. I now ask the delegates here assembled to please stand. And now I ask, shall we grant Kendrick Castillo full membership in the Knights of Columbus?
As people go through life, just remember, be like Kendrick, be selfless. He was the angel and the saint in my life. They taught me how to live. He attacked terrorism much like he attacked life. Full bore and with love. He knew there was evil and he knew that he had to just lead and make something happen to protect others. I want people to understand and realize that it wasn't that one act that he did that day, but it's how he lived and celebrated his life. He was my hero his entire life.
Rita Castillo, Your Honor. John Castillo.
I'm sorry?
John Castillo, then Maureen.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor, for allowing me to speak today. Ironically, today is Constitution Day. It's the anniversary of the Vietnam War. And it's also a new immigrant day. Why these things are important to me?